Hey everybody, how's it going? It is time to go through game stuff at long last. I really want to create this video just to go over the basic fundamentals of my game that I created several years ago called the Hero Experience. I put together a quick slideshow of just to give you an overview of how the system runs and what it's capable of and the potential for more. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get in this. You can pause any time to check out more information on the slides. I'm going to try not to read directly off of it, but here we go. So what the actual hex? So when I designed this system, I created it to be as simple as possible and allow for the uh, most amount of complexity as desired inside a simple system. Um, my ideal vision by the time that this whole book is written is it will fit in the size of a comic book and give you enough information to pretty much adapt it to any kind of scene or scenario, mostly on the fly. So it's going to be a very good system for improvisation, as well as adapting any other game system, any other module that you get a hold of. So as you see here, one die pretty much runs the game, and that's the D12. Um, you can use D6s when you're dealing with damage. They actually translate into D3s, but that's for equipment and weapons and stuff like that. And I'm not going to include that in this presentation, but it will be included in the downloadable PDF version of this. But basically, this is the core of the system. You know, you roll your die and you're checking against yourself, not against a set difficulty class. So the idea behind the skill system is everybody is relatively considered equal in a skill, or when you're called to make a check, it should be something that's a reasonable task to accomplish. So instead of checking against any kind of set difficulty, you're basically checking against yourself. So as long as you roll underneath of what your skill is, then you succeed. And you also see the measurement for or the measure for critical success. So rolling half your skill or lower is a critical success. So in this system, there will be a lot of crits. I really wanted to use that as a reward and incentive um, to roll well, to distribute your skills well. Um, but to balance that out, critical successes aren't as flashy as they are in other systems. And that's okay because I've got mechanics that are rolled into crits because they'll be occurring a lot more often. So we'll get into a lot of that later. But one of the other big things about this system is there are no opposed rolls. So whoever is rolling has priority. Instead of I make a check and then I check it against someone else and then we check it out a bunch of different numbers and modifiers, like none of that. You're always checking against your ability to do something. So in the next stage, and I'll go ahead and move over here, you can modify those rolls. So if you're getting help from another person in your party, or you have found a way to use your action economy to leverage your chances to give you favorable chances to succeed, then you get advantage. If there's anything that's acting against you, then you have a disadvantage. And it's a straight +2, -2 to the roll of the die. And it is stackable. So it helps you to build some complex teamwork synergies. Um, yeah, so that's it. So I said there's no opposed rolls. What I do have is a contested action. So that's and I guess if you see right there, if there are two people vying for the same task, you're going to take the opponent's roll, their critical rate, which is half their skill rank, and you're going to add it to your score. And then you roll, and you have to roll underneath of whatever it is. So you're going to roll that or add that critical score as a disadvantage to your roll. And that's basically how that works. So again, I want to design this. I designed it for she was 8 at the time, for my 8-year-old daughter to be able to play, but for my army buddies to be able to enjoy the tactics and complexity of it. So there's that. Moving on. Okay, so here's just an example for that, so you can see basically how that works. I really like the first example because that's like been my bread and butter example for the whole system. or for the system since its inception. And you can see that with a static number, like you have a five, or sorry, you have a six and you roll five. Having an advantage or a disadvantage will can vastly shift the outcome of your action from critical success, regular success, or a miss. And again, if you have a critical failure that's counting on a roll of 12 or higher, this is how you get that higher. You've got those disadvantages, and when they're added together, that can modify your roll above 12, which will cause a critical failure. In the second example, this is kind of like what those contested actions are. And you kind of get an idea of how that works. If your guard has a perception skill of 8 and he's looking for you, then you're going to add 4 to whatever it is you roll. So let's assume you had a 6, and you're going to add that 4 as a disadvantage. So your 6 becomes a 2. So you would need to roll a 1 or a 2 to succeed. So that's how that works. It's very simple. It can get a little bit complicated while you're getting the hang of it, but once it clicks into place, everything rolls smooth and fast. And it's really easy to make calls on the spot when you get put into a tricky situation. Anyway, so there's that. That is the absolute core of the system. So this is just like a brief overview of what your character sheet would look like. Again, when I designed this, the idea was for it to fit on an index card and the system to be run by a D12. And again, I said mention of D6s earlier, but a D12 can be divided to make it into a D6. Just roll whatever you get and divide it by two. Same thing with a D3 because D3s are actually the other die that's used. And you roll a D12 divided by four. But anyway, so this is your brief overview of the character sheet. You've got your the skills in red and the skills are blue. That is how you navigate the world and interact with the setting. The health and the wounds, like no matter how powerful you get, you will never have more than 20 health boxes. And we'll go into that a little bit later. I have 4 actions linked up. You only get 3, but there are special abilities and situations where you could be granted a bonus action. So I put that on the tracker just for you to quickly determine like how you act in a combat round. The resistances, I'm not really going to go into that now. It's more explained in the PDF, but basically it's the same thing, advantage, disadvantage. When you're taking damage from one of these types of sources, if you have a resistance to it, then you subtract the damage by 1 or 2, whichever it is. Anyway, up to 3 to 6. So that's basically what the character sheet looks like. So moving on, these are the skills. So what I did, and you'll see over here, I've got these divided into combat skills, exploration skills, and social skills. And they're columns. And then knowledge skills, trade skills, and the miscellaneous skills. So I know it seems like a lot. That's 6 different categories with 5 each. That's 30 skills. It seems like a lot to keep track of. But if you break it down into what you're trying to do, what you're attempting to do, whether it's combat oriented, exploration oriented, social oriented, etc., it should be easy to find the skill that you want. So with that in mind, these are your combat skills. So melee, obviously, this is how you fight. Range is how you fight with ranged weapons, easy. But potency is basically how you fight with magic. So those 3 are very straightforward and they're very analogous. The only 2 odd ones on this list is reflex. This is, your traditional reflex if you need to make a reflexive roll to avoid something or like that. But this one also is going to determine your initiative in combat. So I don't have rolled initiative. Basically, it's whatever your reflex score is the order that you go in combat. So obviously having a higher reflex means that you're going to go first. If 2 characters have the same reflex score, then if they're allied, then they can choose who goes first, who goes second. Even if they're like, if you have a 7 and a reflex and your ally has an 8 in reflex, since you guys go together with no enemy in between you, you can actually choose which of your actions go in order. So you can set up for combos, set up for maneuver, like maneuver into place, hold your other 2 actions, wait till the other person to get in place, and then you all waylay on the guy with an advantage. So that's just another little glimpse into how the strategy element works. If you are tied with an enemy, then you just do a simple roll of d12 and then call high or low whether you want to go first or after your opponent. Tenacity, this is like, again, endurance resistance. It's also your extra health boxes. So if you remember over here, we've got the health wounds. So everybody gets 10. 10 is the base health for every character. And then whatever your tenacity score after that is going to be determined by these other 10. So again, at maximum level or power or whatever, and you can even start off the game with a tenacity score of 10, but the most health that you can ever have is 20. And that keeps keeping the numbers low, makes it easier to track things. So instead of, I mean, it's essentially the same thing. Like if you play D&D or something like that, you have characters that have, thousands of hit points doing hundreds of damage. I mean, it's essentially you have tens of hit points doing ones of damage. I just simplified the math on that system to make it flow a lot faster. And so this is definitely not a, ooh, look at all the dice I get to roll and all the numbers I get to add. This is very, very simple, straightforward. So combat skills, exploration skills is basically how you explore your environment. Basic, fair, nothing crazy. I try to stick with like your athletics and agility or more aggressive approaches. Perception and investigation are more regarded reserve approaches. Kismet's an interesting one. I really liked having luck as a skill because there's been plenty of times like as a player or as a GM, someone had the question's been come up like, oh, well, would I be able to find this here? Or would it make sense for this? And anytime there's a question like that, you get to check against your luck to manifest that. So this is a wonderful tool for both players and GMs to make something happen that needs to be happened that wasn't necessarily planned for, or accommodates an action that a player wants to take that wasn't necessarily foreseen. So Kismet's a wonderful skill. Outside of that niche thing, it really has very little value. So again, uh, allocating your skills is going to be um, a very interesting way to get unique builds and unique play styles just by a simple adjustment of the points. So then you got social skills. Again, command, beguile, very straight, aggressive type of actions. Insight and logic, they're more, um, don't want to say a defensive, but kind of like what we have with the perception investigation. It runs it together with insight and logic. Also, charm. Charm's kind of your, I mean, it's charm. I mean, they're very straightforward and easy skills. But that's how they work. And then we move over here. These blue skills, these are background skills. So the big thing about background skills, as opposed to your primary skills, which are all the ones in red, those are how you navigate the world. These are basically how you interact with the world on a deeper level. So if you want to do research or if you want to find out more, get more involved in the lore of the world, this is where you're going to go. So again, with this system, I've designed it to be applicable for multiple genres. So in the primary skills, the core skills that we saw in red, those could be used for any game setting, any genre. These ones are going to change a little bit. So the idea is going to be the same, but depending on the genre and the technology level, some of the skill names might change a little bit. So here are the knowledge skills, and this is basically like your knowledge of these different fields. It's pretty straightforward. I think, I hope, I've really aimed for straightforward trade skills. So this is like crafting things, also like more in-depth manipulating. So like here I've got tinkering, crafting, manipulating complex devices, and then hacking. So tinkering becomes your computer skill. Alchemy becomes chemistry. Crafting becomes engineering and building like engines and stuff like that. Writing and piloting. Again, there's a lot of overlap. So I'm not trying to come up with wildly different skills. They're very similar in theme, just evolve for the genre, I guess you could say. But these are your trade skills. And then finally, we got miscellaneous skills. I really didn't know what else to do with these. These are fun to play with, but they're really a lot of fluff They really help you determine, the specifics of your character, background, interests. I've seen all of these skills used in very brilliant ways in a lot of different settings, a lot of different systems. So I wanted to include a place for them. Plus, I like symmetry, and we had 15 in the top, 15 in the bottom. So here are the miscellaneous skills: learn them, love them, live them. Those are the skills. So basically, when it comes to just real quick, so when we're talking about skill distribution, and I'll go back here to this page. When you start the game, all of these ranks are six. And then when you're crafting your character, you'll take one from here and add it to here. And you'll stay with that inside of each column. You'll adjust each column up and down. You're going to max out at 10, and you can't have any score less than 2. And again, all this stuff is explained in the PDF with the full rules, but I just wanted to go into that just right now so you can get an idea of how you can build really different, diverse, complex characters. I also keep them themed by column so that you can't borrow from one place and put it to another. Because I like in design and in play well-rounded characters, and you don't have to be good at everything, but you should have something to contribute in each scene. So my decision to do this was to keep more players having more options and more scenes. So that's the whole point of that. All right, back to where we were. So we've got all of our character skills done, and we're getting an idea of who our characters are. Outside of that, every character is going to get 5 traits. So you've got your skills, which is how the game runs, and then you have traits. So this is basically how to craft your own race, heritage, whatever. If you want to be an elf, a dwarf, you're going to have 5 traits to select from that are going to help you define that. And if you want to play something crazy like a hybrid, a crossbreed, a mutant, or whatever, there's a list of these things that you can pick from and choose from. And they're essentially going to fall in, like you see here, it's going to provide you an advantage. It's going to offer some type of resistance, or it's going to modify your play experience. Um, the sky is the limit as to what you can build. And this is just an extra way to um, really specialize your character and even if you're having 2 elves, like there's nothing saying that all elves have only 5 traits that they can choose from. Like you can mix and match, and not every elf is going to be built. So I really wanted to highlight the idea of diversity and get away from the idea of just being a race, because largely everything that you do is going to be descriptive, and it's whether you have the skill to back it up. So the way that these traits are designed is so that you can take these traits and put them into making your character do what you want it to do. Really backing up the description. So that's basically what this is for. And there is a lot that I plan on doing with the traits to expand it, as far as like not just your standard fantasy races, but in the future, I plan on dealing with cyberware for cyberpunk type games, superhero powers. There's a lot of interesting things that we could play with the traits, but for right now, this is the base system. And also the mastery traits. One of the big things about this is like, yeah, it gives you a +2 static bonus, but I use this as a marker to say, well, I get a +2. Let's say, I use physician down here. I get a +2 to medicine because I'm going to be using medicine a lot. But I also like to look at this as a way to mark your character as having done some extra special training. So not only do you get a +2, but other people in the world know you as a physician. So they might come to you with specific requests or quests that cater to you being a physician. Now, how does that work? Let's say you put a 2 in physician or in medicine, and then you took this trait, so you've got a 4 in medicine effectively, but you're qualified as a doctor. Well, hey man, you know what they call a doctor with a C? Doctor. So it's not necessarily about being the most brilliant at it. It's just, hey, you've got this title, so it should entitle you to, a higher level of knowledge, maybe and pedigree when you're dealing with NPCs in the world around you and other characters. So there's that. So that's what the character traits are in a nutshell. Combat mechanics. So this is um, kind of developed from the idea of shoot, move, communicate. It's a the combat model from Army play. Um, there are three actions per round, like we talked about. So shoot, move, communicate. In D&D, you find a lot of this like I'm going to move, I'm going to attack, and the communicate thing is either I can attack twice, or I can defend, or I can do something else. So the third action here is kind of gives you a little bit of play style wiggle room. Whether you want to take that extra attack, whether you want to defend, or whether you want to make an extra move, but it gives you a lot more maneuverability. And then it's, of course, the types of actions. Normal actions are the bread and butter. Everything pretty much is a normal action that would be considered normal. Um, every action is a normal action unless specified otherwise. Special actions are special because you can only do one in a round. So that means from the start of your turn, the end of your turn, the end of the round, the start of your next turn is when you get your next special action. Now, there might be special abilities that let you override this, but this is basically how it shakes out for game balance systems. Reactions, as you see, they're triggers. They're abilities that you can pick up that let you respond to different types of attacks. Also, if you say, "Oh, I want to wait until this condition is met," that's you basically setting up the trigger for a reaction. Without planning, like being able to do that on the fly, you're gonna need abilities for that. We'll get into all that later. Actually, we won't get into that in this video, but the system covers all of that. Passive abilities, again, like dark vision is a passive ability that would you pick up as a trait. Things like that, like a dwarf's hardy constitution, like that would be a passive, resistance. Like that's basically what that is. Bonus actions, and again, we talked about that too. Different features or abilities give you additional use of generally a normal, but there are some really special types of bonus actions where you can grant an additional use of a special action. So if you see that, that is on purpose. That's the only time that you can do more than one special action in a turn. Anyway, again, very simple, very straightforward. Uh, Approaching it first might take a little bit of practice, but once you get it down, man, everything runs so smooth. You never have to look up, you know, research a library worth of material to figure out what it is that you want to do or how to execute what you're intending to do. So there's that. Taking damage. Now, this is the fun. Like I took a lot of inspiration from this from playing what was it, Shadowrun, I think. I really like the way that they did their wound system, and it's how I can add a level of survivability to characters who only have a 20 health pool of 20. It's also easy when you're making enemies, NPCs, give them one health, or give them 5 health or 10 health, or give them health, but don't let them have wounds. So there's a whole level of complication you can add to enemies and NPCs just based off the health system to make them easier or tougher without breaking too much of the game balance. So you've got the example here, and you see here on the box, this person has a 5 in tenacity, so they've got their 10 from just everybody. And here's the 5 extra boxes that they get for having a 15 or having a 5 in tenacity. So on the character sheet, I would black these out. These are not available. So this is what their damage looks like right before they take an attack. And then bam, they get attacked again. So what we do is we fill out the rest of these boxes, and then we come back here and make these wounds. The X is marked wound. So every time you take a wound, you need to roll a tenacity check to stay conscious. So this is another level of tactics. Like the assassins, they have the ability to wound somebody whenever they do damage. And it's a special action, obviously, so it's not happening all the time. It's basically a rogue sneak attack. But this gives you the chance and opportunity to essentially one hit kill somebody. And of course, for your boss fights, you might want to add a resistance to that or whatever. As the GM, you have the ability to play with this. But this also rewards really great roles for your characters and really crappy roles for you. And change the battle tone in a instant and dynamic way. Anyway, so there you go. So we took wounds. So we rolled our tenacity check. We stayed conscious. Then we go over here. Somebody comes in and heals you. Now, all of the healing that I have designed is relieves all of your damage at the cost of one wound. Very rarely will you find an ability that heals in D3s. And if you do, that means that there's no wound penalty for healing. But it's also, you're not getting a full heal. But even the simple cast of a heal spell, the drinking of a potion, it's going to do away with all of your damage at the cost of one wound. Now, the thing with this is when you receive that wound from healing, you have a chance of passing out. That does a couple of things. One, it keeps things from, well, taking the wound in the first place keeps in-game immortality in check. And the other part of it, it adds a level of tactical awareness to your healing. Because as a combat medic for the army, we always say the best medicine for the battlefield is more bullets. And you don't want to start treating a casualty unless you have combat superiority. Why? Well, it takes you out of the action, but also, like if I shot somebody full of morphine because they're in pain and then they pass out, well, then that's me not fighting back, and that's the guy on the ground passed out. So I try to honor a little bit of that. There's also, like I said, there's a mechanical balance for it, but I really like the way that this plays out, and it has played out in the games that I've played, and my players love it too. So I really hope that you enjoy this because it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun coming up with it. It's been a lot of fun implementing. So there's damage. That's how you heal. Yeah, so there's that. Character development. So again, to keep things super simple, XP is rewarded one at a time. That's it. You get XP for doing different things. Like the only, like on a rare occasion, like if I've got a scene that multiple characters are acting in and they just making crit after crit after critical success, and it's an exploration scene or a social scene, and I want to give them a special reward for doing so well, I might give them 2 XP, but that's it. One at a time, very rarely two at a time. And the way that you develop your skills, the way that you buy your talents and abilities, and we'll go into that in a minute, is by pooling your XP and then buying what you want. So yeah, I mean that's it. The talents and the abilities. So that's the final level of character customization. And that's basically like your class is determined by a talent. The abilities with inside a talent, you can buy up to 5 different abilities for talent. So right now I've got a baseline of 7 abilities in each talent, so you can only have 5. But over the 5 different talents that you get, you can build traditional rogue, traditional fighter, traditional mage, or a hybrid of any type, of any combination of those. Um, and that gives you just an unparalleled level of, I don't want to say multi-classing because it's not multi-classing. It's character nuance. Like I really want you, and that's why the system's called the hero experience, because it's your hero experience. The character, the hero that you have in mind, you should be able to play them based off of the skills, the talents, the abilities, everything like that. That's unique to you. So build your character because that's the whole point. Whatever odd combination you think you can have, it's not going to be odd. There's going to be something for everything. And that's another thing. Like I don't have levels in this game. So having more talents, having more abilities, having higher skills, it's not giving you more power. What it's doing is it's giving you more options. So that's a twofold thing. Like one, at the highest levels of play, you're still kind of as vulnerable as someone at level 1 of play or the lowest tier of play. So you always have to act with a bit of humility, a little bit of, you know, caution, um, because it's really easy to get overwhelmed in some of these combat encounters, especially. Well, I'm going to leave that to your GM and your individual play. but nobody's safe. Everyone is under threat at all times. And having more power really just means more options. It doesn't mean you're doing more damage or anything like that. Even inside of the talents and abilities, and here's kind of like an overview of the ones that I'm including with the base kit. There's not special abilities that add a whole lot of extra damage. It's again, it's just doing damage in a different way or doing it to multiple sources or whatever it is, but you're not stacking a whole lot of damage um, to get those high numbers. Because again, the health is kept relatively low. So what's really going to help you out here is going to be teamwork. There are definitely abilities and talents that combo well with each other, and not just with yourself. So you can create your own self synergies, but also strategies with teammates. So building together is going to ensure cooperative level of play where everybody feels like they've contributed in a significant manner. That is the core element design philosophy behind all of this. Simple mechanics, unlimited customization, and I really want you to feel like you're enjoying yourself and you're enjoying your heroic experience. So that's it. And you see, like right here, I've got weapon talent. So if you want to focus on a weapon combat style, like weapon style, you've got that. Combat talents, like the assassination is your typical rogue, battle master is your typical fighter, the berserker is like a barbarian, the commander is kind of like a bard, like giving people advantage or you know creating opportunities to give other people actions, and then your magic, the fire, earth, wind, water, healing, mage armor, necro. I mean, this is all very standard fare, but like I said, the what makes it fun is your ability to combine any five talents to come up with a very unique flavor and a very unique play style. So that's it. Please feel free to reach out to me. Right now, I have in the PDF that I'm going to present here, it's kind of vanilla fantasy. I have a lot of work that's put into developing. I mean, I've got hundreds and hundreds of talents and abilities that are designed for specific settings. I can't mention those right now because I think some of them are under trademark, but this system can play just about anything you can imagine. If it isn't supported directly, then what you can do is you can take something that's similar and just adapt it, and then you're going to get the feel that you want. You're going to build the character that you want. You're going to have the play style that you want. Like I said, standard fantasy is what I came with. I've designed Wuxia campaign for people that like the big anime fans. All that's available. You could play anime. You know, I can't use specific titles. You can have an anime experience. Um, Space opera, generic space opera, uh, space military, all of those things are possible. And again, I'm developing currently, and please hit me up on Discord. I'm trying to work out a way to bring superheroes, superhero stories, superhero powers into this type of setting. So pretty much anything can be honored. I've got standard weapons, modern weapons, all that jazz. Tons and tons of material. Please hit me up. Please enjoy it. Um, and give me some feedback. Let me know if you like it. Let me know if you don't like it. Let me know what you would change, what you would tweak. Um, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, reach out, enjoy, and we will definitely get together get together later. Yeah. All right, take it easy. Bye.